Welcome everyone to episode 34 of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts and today I talked with Gormie, who is an engineer and producer out of Melbourne, Australia. In this episode, we talked about his very unique origin story, how he came up doing voiceover recordings, then his journey with his band Big Smoke, and also how he took over his current recording studio, Purple Wayne. We also talked about why he sees artist comfort as the number one priority in a recording session, as well as a big discussion about microphone choice and placement and things like that. One thing to note about this episode is it starts off without any video because I'm a bit of a stooge and didn't organize myself properly right at the start. You'll also hear how I messed up with my calendar booking and he also rocked up an hour late. It's pretty funny. It's chaotic. It's funny. It's a great episode. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much for checking the podcast out. If you could do us a favor and share it around on your socials, that helps us spread the word about this. We want to get it out to as many people as possible. And make sure you've hit follow and subscribe on your podcast platforms to stay up to date with all of the latest episodes. Let's go episode 34 with Gormie. You're listening to What's That Sound with your host, Stu Watts. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts. Today I'm here with Gormie. Gormie, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks for having me. Great
Thank you for being here. It's
Do I address the camera? Or?
Yeah, do whatever you want, man.
It's my show.
It's your show.
No.
You
It's
take
your
over. Nah.
And it's a great show.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. And thanks again. We got in touch recently and you've jumped on pretty quick, which I'm appreciative of.
Yeah.
I always like getting things done. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's good to be here. I'll actually share with people. I actually didn't plan the calendar properly and I was very surprised when Gormie rocked up and I was like, yes, we had planned this today. But anyway, you're here now. Let's go.
I showed up an hour late. Cause you said
so we both fucked up.
Well, yeah. So, yeah.
All good, man. Let's kick it off with, you know, who you are and what you do here in the crazy music industry.
Well, it's funny, like over the last probably 5 years, I've kind of seen myself more of an engineer rather than a producer, but more just from a conceptual point of view, because I guess it's funny to think like what a producer actually does, because there are so many different ways you can produce a band. I guess I see myself as a little bit more hands off, but I think that's come through the artists like that I've worked. It's been informed by the artists that I've worked with.
Yeah.
I tend to work with artists that have like a pretty strong vision. So I guess, yeah. And it's also like listening to other producers, engineers talk and being influenced by them as well.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say that I go as far as like the Steve Albini thing where you just show up to his place and he just records you and it's just like, that's what it is. Like I wouldn't go that far, but I wouldn't say that I'm someone who is like a Rick Rubin, who's just like
involved,
completely. Yeah. So
give me one sec. I just gotta make sure I fucking hit record, man. What am I doing today? Seriously, I didn't. What the fuck am I doing?
That was a good start.
So legit, fucking. Oh my god. I'm so out of it today. All right, we're good.
Did we get the audio though? That was good. Maybe you could start it in a way. You could start.
I've done that once before.
Maybe you could start it in a way where it's just like it starts with the audio and then it comes in. And
keeps
the video.
that in. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, all right.
Do you want to do the start again?
Well, I'll do that as like the.
Because I won't be able to say that as good.
I know. All right. Well, fuck it.
Is it rolling? Stu?
It is. I'm on a fucking roll today, people. Yeah, let's just keep going. Let's keep it going. That's real.
Because this is like totally like this is music. Like this is the thing, this is me as well. Like as you will like if we ever become better friends, you will know that I am the biggest shambles of all time. So like I think that the fact that this episode started like this is perfect.
Yeah.
If there's some way that you can keep it without like
I'm
losing
keeping it.
credibility,
We're going.
like with your podcast, like if it can somehow start in this way that is completely ramshackle.
Listen, man,
crap,
if people aren't liking it, they can turn off. Whatever.
But if anyone knows, like anyone who knows me that watches this will dig the fact that it started in a way that's just
good.
Like literally like
I'm
rolling.
about it. We're here now. We're going.
We'll keep
you can
rolling.
see us now, which is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, most people probably just listen to it anyway. So
yeah.
whatever.
On Spotify when they're cooking dinner. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, keep going.
We were talking
you
about
consider yourself
producing.
more of an engineer.
Yeah, I think so, because I think for me it's more about, well, because I'm a player as well. So like I came to engineering through playing. I guess maybe I should just start with the story,
man.
because I was
go
thinking
back to the
like
start, dude.
I listened to a few of these and like people were talking about their start, and I always find that super interesting.
Yeah, take us back, man. Where did music?
Yeah,
like what happened?
So I guess I don't come from like a hugely musical family. Like my parents were probably like the equivalent of people who listen to Triple J now. Like they liked having music on. It was a musical household, but like they weren't like huge fans. Like I have friends that their parents like introduced them to the Beatles and stuff. Like my parents didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like probably the coolest thing that like my dad introduced me to was like Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, cool.
So like he would play like Born to Run and stuff like that.
What a banger.
And Queen and stuff like that. Like he was into like music that like had a lot of heart, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess as a kid, that was the kind of stuff that was playing in the house. There was nothing like super intellectual or anything like that. Split Ends.
Yeah.
Billy Joel.
Yeah.
ABBA.
Yeah.
I guess like probably music that was cool at the time.
Well, I mean, I can relate as well. My dad was like a heavy metal fan.
Yeah.
He was into like Black Sabbath, Def Leppard. Oh, not Def Leppard. Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin. Like all of that stuff. That was his thing. My mum was like classic rock almost.
Yeah.
And pop, I guess.
Which is cool.
Yeah, she loved, coolly enough, because it's like one of my favorite styles, just 90s rock.
Yeah.
She just loves like Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam and stuff like that. I'm like, sick.
Pearl Jam's cool.
Yeah, I'm on that. So
yeah, I guess like, so that was kind of floating around the house. And then at school, like at primary school and stuff, I was never really thinking about music. One of the teachers, Mr. Butler, if you're out there, probably like the first person I ever saw play music.
Yep.
And I thought about it as music and something that made you feel good. He had a bass guitar and he would just get it out and just play.
Sick.
And it's funnily enough, like I'm a bass player. But I remember that experience being kind of like, I was thinking about how it sounded rather than like what it was.
Yeah.
So like the second thing that happened was, and I think this is the thing that really made me want to play and really turn my brain on to how music can sound, was we went to see Circus Oz.
Okay. Which
was like this, I don't even know where it was. It was in this like massive like circus ring.
Are you from around here?
Yeah, I grew up in Pakenham, which is like kind of, it's like the suburbs.
Because they used to do it at Greensboro.
Yeah,
but
well,
like
maybe it was
been
there.
that. Yeah.
But I remember so vividly going to see this one particular part of it, this dude with a double bass.
Yeah, right.
Which was like attached to like, you know, like a cable, and he was like on the double bass and it was like swinging around the fucking thing.
Imagine that pitch to the director.
Yeah,
like,
it was
you know what I'm going to do?
Insane. But I just remember how it sounded, like the sound of the tone of the thing. And I'm like, what? I don't even know how old I was. I was probably like 7 or 8. I was like, what the hell is that? It sounds like the thing is going to rip in half, like the tone of it. And I just remember after that asking my parents, like, I want to learn how to play that thing.
Yeah, sick.
And they were just like, look, that's super expensive. Like, why don't we start with, my mom had a nylon string guitar that she had from when she was a kid. And I just remember getting that and like trying to pluck it like the bass to get that sound.
Yep.
And I think like when I was thinking about like what I wanted to talk about today with sound, I came to music from a sound perspective rather than like I want to be proficient. So I like even think like my playing today, I'm not that like I can't play jazz. I can't really read, even though I went to to TAFE to study. I'm not good at improvising, like, but I really love the sound of things. Obviously, like that's why I would do it. But the bass and like the lower notes of the piano, like have always been something that's really struck with me. So
I thought you were going to say resonated with me. I was going to say
we could do an edit. But I think so. Like going up through. So the next thing after I got that nylon and like my parents could see that I was like plucking it and I was trying to make it sound like this bass and I'm like, I think I need a bass. So I think it was like till year 7. So like that was when I was in primary school. And then in year 7, they did this thing where, and St. Francis Xavier College, who were doing it, funnily enough, doing a trip here before. And my mum was here and she was like, I went to this great studio. And I'm like, and then like random. A month later, it's like Marshall Street. I'm like, that's where she was. Anyway, so
so good.
They had a hire thing. So like I remember they hired me this Samick. It was green, horrible teal green color. And the strings were all gold because it'd been played so much. Like all the nickel had been coming off the strings. Wow. So like I got this bass and this little amp and I would just try and get this thing to sound like I remembered it at Circus Oz. And I, it had like a little distortion button on at the amp. So I'd like hit the distortion and just try and pluck this thing. So then like from there, I was like obsessed with like slap and trying to get like to sound like Flea.
Just the sound.
Just trying to get it to sound how I could remember it. And my teachers were really good. Like I had this one teacher, Nathan, who he played at the time for Missy Higgins.
Okay.
And he taught me heaps about getting tone out of it. And that's when I learned about how to set your bass up, like how to change the action. And like, he taught me all this technical stuff. It's like, oh, you want to play harder. You got to raise it up higher and like hit it harder. And it's funny because like now I play really soft and I use like really light gauge strings and my whole, I guess philosophy with that has changed. But anyway, so I'm in high school playing bass, and the second part of what I was thinking about before I came in here was like, I've always been a service person in music. So like basically I wanted to play bass so I could get into a band,
right? Because
there weren't that many bass players as well. So I'm like, I'll keep doing this bass thing. So then so I think I was in the second best punk band in my school.
Awesome.
There was like 2 really good ones.
Yeah.
And like I was in the second best. I think I was in the second best one.
What was the name?
Our name was Face for Radio.
That's all right. Not bad.
The other band's name, I can't even remember what the other band's name was, but Sunday Morning Syndrome.
Okay.
SMS. Saturday Morning Syndrome. They were really good. They used to do covers, and I remember the bass player from that band was really good. They did this cover of Maxwell Murder.
Oh, yeah.
And he would do the bass solo.
Yeah.
I was never that kind of player.
Yeah.
So I guess we did that. There was like a vet music course at that school, which was pretty cool. And they taught us how to do MIDI and like basic recording and stuff. But it still hadn't switched on to me yet about recording. And then I kind of got through school. I just kind of floated through. I wasn't bad at school, but I was a bit of a, like, I just fuck around. Just like, I didn't really pay much attention. And it got to the end of school and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. My parents were always supportive of me doing music and doing the things that I liked because I wasn't really getting into trouble. So like, just keep doing it. They'd drive me around to like gigs and stuff. And my dad would help me buy stuff from the trading post.
Sweet.
I think at this point I already had some pretty cool guitars and stuff, just like finding in the trading post. And then school finished and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I didn't really get a good grade. Like I got like, you know, a pretty average enter score. So I couldn't really do much. So then I started looking around at audio stuff, music degrees, because I thought maybe I could do that. And then I found that through doing that degree at Box Hill TAFE, I was useful again to bands, like, because it was always about being useful, and being able to keep doing stuff because I could learn how to record. So then I would always be able to hang out. So that's always kind of been my thing. Like, if I can do something that like is useful, then I can hang out. And
it's I mean, I'm
because I was
sure
never that good,
but I'm sure so many people would resonate with that, and you know, especially, you know, there's I would say probably half of the engineers in the world probably aren't that proficient about like playing their instruments. And so therefore it's like, I still want to be around music and probably still love, and obviously love the sound of it and getting sounds. So I'm sure everyone's like pretty much there with you. Yeah.
And I'm probably selling myself short. Like I'm okay at playing. Like I can do it. Like from there I met most of the people from like one of my more formative bands. So one of them was a guy that I went to school with, Luke. He went to high school and I was playing in these bands with him, Face for Radio and all that stuff. He was always in the picture and I have him to thank for a lot of things. Basically, the other members of this band called Big Smoke that I used to play in. So I met those guys there, and it was the same thing with TAFE. Like I just kind of floated through. Like I wish I could go back and like pay more attention when they were like teaching us how to use the console and like teaching us about mics, because like I ended up having to go through and make all these mistakes after, because I wasn't paying attention.
It's a good way to learn though. Like I think we have to, and I don't think that's avoidable necessarily, even if you are paying attention. Like, because I did the TAFE thing as well. I did it at MIT, which is now Polytechnic, but and we had a big, large format console, and
so much good stuff.
It was
at
great
TAFE too.
All the microphones, like,
and I would just use like the 57s and stuff because I was comfortable with it. Like I didn't have the like courage to just be like, I'm just going to grab that U67, but I didn't even know what it was. Like I was one of those kids that, well, I didn't say this, but there was a kid at school who said like Newman. And like all the other kids laughed at him. Except for me, because I didn't even know that. Like I don't know what that's what it's called, right? Like, but I was just sitting there quietly watching. But like,
I was probably the one that tried to correct the teacher to say, no, it's Newman. And then they're like, no.
But like I was just, again, like I kind of floated through. I really tried hard on my end of year thing. Like I made a record, which is actually still online somewhere now, which I think sounds amazing. With my friend Luke, he would come in after hours and we would just like work on this record. So like I did try really hard at the end, but then TAFE kind of finished and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? Like, I'm still not really doing anything. I still wasn't in this mindset that I could make a life out of making records yet. I still wasn't there. So, just through dumb luck, again, I got this job in this call center with Luke that was around the advertising industry. So at this time, I was working in this call center. We were just listening to tunes every day and fucking around. Like, again, I was just floating through and all the while playing in this band Big Smoke, which was kind of doing stuff, but kind of not really doing stuff.
I mean, the names, like I was playing in bands up until 2018 and I remember
we were around then. That was kind of the time, like when it ended. And I'll get to that part. I feel like this is kind of like, I feel like my ramshackle brain is kind of putting this together. But basically, I've never gone through this before, so this is kind of fun. But anyway, so like I'm doing this thing in the call center, playing this band Big Smoke, and then it started getting kind of serious at the call center. Like they we were kind of just like working on our own. And then like one day, like one of the big dudes came down and he was just like, what the hell is actually going on? And like, it was like this giant room down in the basement of this place. So we were barely doing any work.
Yeah.
We were just looking after ourselves. Like we were just like 20 years old. And he's like, what's going on down here? We were just like, and then basically like he's like, okay, we're going to dissolve this call center's not going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah,
like
right.
You're going to come out and work in the advertising part. And like when we had to go out there, like he kind of went into the front and I was like in with this marketing dude. And I'm just like, I was getting so like, I'm like, this sucks. Like I don't want to, you know, so I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I started looking around, making some like connections, and there was this recruiting guy that worked there that put me in touch with this dude, Phil Webster, who is part of like the original Australian advertising sound kind of, he's like the guy. So there's this guy called Bill Armstrong. Yeah. He had these two dudes that worked for him, Roger Savage. And Phil, right? So Roger Savage went on to do Sound Firm. Yeah. And Sound Firm is this giant company that like, they got this huge, they had like the first Atmos studio in Melbourne.
Well, I did my work experience at Armstrong's Audio Visual.
There you go. Okay. Small world.
Yeah. And that was amazing. Yeah, so I haven't talked about it before, but like, there was like, this place was legit. It was like the biggest like, Australian audio visual company.
They like invented, like they like made an industry for themselves. Oh, like, amazing. And Bill Armstrong's like, he's like the guy. Not many people know about.
Nah. But I think the name Phil Webster's familiar to me. Well, I might have met him probably.
Yeah. Phil's another guy in my story who I just have endless. I just have to give endless thanks to because he basically like, introduced me to the people that were going to change my musical like brain and like help me keep going. So basically, this recruiting guy introduced me to Phil, and I went and saw Phil, and I'm like, look, I've got this degree. Basically means fucking nothing. And this is all I've got. I don't want to work in advertising, but I kind of don't mind doing sound for advertising, which is what Phil had created, like this whole thing with like casting voiceovers and like getting the right talent and making something incredible out of like an ad for like Big Pens or like an ad for like fucking, I don't know.
I reckon he might have been the dude that I sat in on a voiceover session.
Oh, totally. With. He's the guy.
It was cool.
He's the best. So basically like, he's like, look, I don't have anything, but he like, I don't know. He's like, I like you. You should maybe. And he like took me, like he was the most lovely guy. He like took me to the studio and all the other dudes that were there were just like, dude, we don't need anybody else. Like, why have we got this guy? And then I was just kind of around, and then he gave me a job on the front desk. So then I was like taking calls and doing that thing. So I was kind of in this cool place that was a studio.
You were just closer to the arena.
I was getting in there and I'm like, I still didn't know whether I wanted to make records, but I was just like, I didn't want to do advertising. I didn't want to do marketing. So anyway, I'm in this place, and long story short, I end up doing audio there. So people leave, people come and go, and I just like slowly started moving up to this point where I was like doing voiceovers, doing audio books, and like actually learning how to use a mic, how to use a compressor, how to use Pro Tools. I had probably my first ever mentor, this guy Matt Thompson. He was a young guy. He was amazing though, and he just taught me about like all the real shit, like all the stuff that you need to know, how to be fast. He'd be like, edit this thing, and he'd be like watching me do it, clicking, and he's like, dude, you went to TAFE for this, like this isn't you need to know all the key command, like you need to get quick because like we're getting paid to do this thing, and if you can get this thing done in like 2 hours,
great advice,
then we can do another one. Love know? And it's just like, just get quick at it. And so like he really got me quick at doing key commands and like setting up sessions and like setting up like naming files properly and like having good backups and learning how to use fucking carbon copy cloner,
unsexy
and like
shit, but
all the unsexy shit that I use today.
Yeah.
Like all my naming conventions and like I have all my backup systems, like all thanks to him. And I've never lost a file. I like, even though I can't even remember where I put my fucking sunglasses.
Can you talk through some of that? Because I think people will get stuff out of that. And it's hard without, because it's a visual thing, but you know.
It's super important. I mean, like it's something that I try and talk to artists about because like even having your own hard drive and at the end of every day, like it costs $100 to get a hard drive. At the end of every day, just going up to the engineer and going, yo, can I just have a backup? Like totally cool.
Yep.
It's your work.
Yeah.
It's your art.
Yeah.
It's your song.
Yep.
At the end of the day, like why would you want to rely on some crazy dude like me to make sure that you don't lose your files? I mean, like that's the said and done thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, you know, most artists that I work with are way more organized than most engineers that I've worked with.
Right. Yeah. That's
And it's
funny,
just, I think it's lucky that some of us aren't bad at file management, but like, and like some of us are way better. Like Hamish Patrick, who's been on this show, he's taught me stuff about file management stuff that I know, but I haven't taken on yet.
Yeah,
like
right.
I learn stuff from him every day. We share a studio together.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I'll just go in there and just be like, what's up?
Yeah.
And he'll just show me this new thing that he's doing with this NAS,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
thing that he has that's connected to Wi-Fi. And it's like, I don't know if you know what that is. I don't even know what it is. But like basically like what I'm trying to say is like you should, as an engineer, one of the more important things is to learn how to use a hard drive and naming convention. Have a naming convention that works for you. It's as important as like learning how to use like a microphone.
Totally.
Because we've all been there. Like we've all lost files and like it's the worst thing ever. Like it's a bummer. Like I've talked to bands that have gone to studios and they've worked for like 3 days and then the computer crashes because they all crash and they've lost everything.
Yep. This is funny because I used to work at Apple. I was like a lead genius there for like a few years.
So was Hamish, I think.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. And so, you know, I'd see it all the time. I'd see it every day. Every day of my working life was like people losing stuff. And so, and I knew that that's a thing. And, you know, it's obvious, and you've heard about it with, you know, bands like Weezer and Green Day have lost
Huge
their
bands.
massive projects and it's like, okay, we have to start over again. It's like, cool. It's like, do that. And the other thing is like, you have to prepare for the worst case scenario because they're the stuff that you cannot predict.
No.
And
it happens.
And it happens. And when it happens, you're fucked.
Yeah,
so it's like,
and that's the worst buzzkill in a session ever. Like, no, like it doesn't matter if you have a U67 and an Eve console. If you lose 3 days of work, like you're probably never going to work with that band again. Now what we're doing, instead of being in this session where we're like creating and like moving into new grounds and like getting these vibes, now you've gone to this thing where, okay, we've lost 3 days. We still have to pay this guy for these 3 days. But now we're just going to try and get back as much as we can. We're still going to try and get out of here with a record. Like, why would you want to work in that?
Nah.
Like, you're never going to come up with anything cool. You might, but it's just like, I think.
Well, you'd have to there's a reset period. Even if you do end up getting the good thing, the shit thing still has happened.
I know. And
so
it's
you've still
always,
got,
and it sucks.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I've never been in that situation because it's so easy.
Yeah.
You just use Time Machine.
Yeah.
Like, even if that's all you do, you have a time machine that's set to every 2 minutes. And like, sorry if this is really boring, everyone, but this is like so important. Even if you have a time machine,
you've forgotten who is listening to this podcast. It's other nerds like us. So.
Yeah, that's true. But like, Time Machine is one of the greatest things to happen to audio because what you can do, there are 2 things that you can do. If you don't want to do anything else, and like Hamish Patrick is probably listening to this right now going, Gormie, there are so many better ways to do this. But this is a really easy way for me to do it. You go into, if you use Pro Tools, I use Pro Tools. If you go into Pro Tools and you set your session file backups to happen as few times as possible, as many times as possible.
Yeah.
So like, I think you can do it every minute.
Yeah.
And you should, because the session file is tiny.
Yeah.
Hard drive space is infinite now.
Yep.
It's so cheap.
Yep.
Don't even think about hard drive space. You can go down to Officeworks and buy a 4 terabyte hard drive for like $50. Like you don't have to buy the best one.
Yeah.
All hard drives are fine. And just set that to do it every minute and then set your time machine to do it as quick as well. So it's doing one every 2 minutes.
Yep.
You're doing a session backup every minute.
Yep.
Even if your computer explodes,
you've got it.
You've got it.
Yeah.
Like you're only losing 2 minutes. So then you just go down to Officeworks, you buy yourself a new MacBook, you fucking fire it up. I mean, like,
but I mean,
obviously you need the cash.
The thing with that as well is if you think about how many sessions that you've been in, guaranteed you've had hundreds of times where the computer's crashed for whatever reason. Plugins crash it, you know.
Less than it used to.
Yeah, agreed, but it still happens. And
like
so
sometimes when the Wi-Fi gets disconnected to my computer,
it'll just crash.
Pro Tools crashes.
Every time not every time, but like regularly when I start up this computer with plugging in the sound card and open Spotify or open a session for the first time in the day, or even on the internet when the web player plays some audio, the computer just and then restarts.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm lucky it happens at the start of the day, at the start of the time that I turn the computer on, but it can still happen later. How do I know that it won't? But anyway.
And I think it's like almost getting like, this might be a little bit crazy. This just kind of crossed my mind, but like even getting to like analog versus digital, right? You using this time machine, it's almost like you're getting a benefit of like how they used to do it back in the day. They're recording to tape, right? This thing runs over the head. There is a physical thing, right? In digital, like, and if the tape machine fucks up, which is our computer is our tape machine these days, most of the time. If the tape machine fucks up, who cares? The tape is still good. Whereas like we have to get into the mindset of thinking, oh, okay, maybe the time machine is like the tape stock.
Yeah.
You know, and as it's rolling past the Pro Tools, it's coming out of the computer into the thing. And it's just like, if the computer stuffs up, I've still got the thing. It's almost like trying to think of it in that way.
It is that. And they would make backups of the tapes as well.
Totally.
Yeah, they wouldn't just keep that one tape because if that's fucked, it's fucked.
So I think that's a good thing. And like that rolls into like having a good session vibe. And I know we've probably like skipped ahead of like a million things, but like session vibe is like everything. Yeah. That's why you're going to get a job if you create a cool vibe, which I'm sure we're going to touch on again later. But maybe
let's take it back to
where were we? I got the job at Bill Armstrong. So Phil Webster, Bill Armstrong, huge legends. Phil, if you're out there, I'll send it to Phil. He'll probably listen to this. He'll probably dig it. But anyway, Phil was so awesome to me. He was one of those guys, and this ties into vibe as well. His vibe at the studio was the best. Like when I got there, he wasn't working anymore. He was just overseeing. And his vibe was amazing. Every room had to have snacks. Every room had to have fresh water. Everything was clean. Everything was perfect. So when the artist came in, he was all about the artist. He liked the advertising people because the advertising hordes would come in and they would just hang out and eat and like they weren't fucking paying attention. It was all about
it's a good day for them. It's a day off for them.
Amazing. They get to go to a studio and hang out and drink coffee. So like the engineer and then the artist would be in the booth. And Phil was all about the artist. Like he just wanted to make the artist feel really good because he knew if the artist felt really good, they did a really good job, that everything just flows down from there. So I would just sit around and watch these sessions and he would just pamper the artists, like make them feel so special. And like, I was just like, fuck, that's what you got to do. You got to make them feel good, feel special, and then they can perform. Like even down to like he would have this special heater in the toilet, like
so good,
so that when you would go to the toilet, it was nice and warm in there.
Attention to detail, just on another level.
So I would. That really stuck with me. And Matt Thompson, those two people, taught me things about having a good session, having water and snacks and everything and the right temperature and all that crap. Which is just as important as how to set the mics up. And then Matt kind of taught me how to do everything else, how to be a pro, how to be able to work and talk. Like, when bands, artists do the tune talk, like when you watch someone tuning guitar on stage and talking, like it was like that. Being able to keep working and keep talking and like make them feel like you're listening, like we'll actually listen to them and editing a vocal or whatever. Super important. Making people feel comfortable.
I love it.
So it got to this point where like, I had my own studio. I was working with artists. I was doing it was really fun, but I was just kind of like, I don't know if I can do this forever because I kind of know what this is. My work still wasn't as good as some of the other engineers that were there that were like way more senior. Like their work was way better than mine. But like, I just was like, maybe I don't want to do this forever. So Big Smoke was starting to do stuff and I was like, I'm just going to do music. So I still wasn't in this point where I was like, I'm going to be an engineer. I was like, maybe still hanging on to the dream of being this. Because I always wanted to be like a bass player in like a big band and like play gigs. Which I luckily got to do. But anyway, Big Smoke was taking off. I went talk to Phil. It was like the worst breakup I've ever had in my life. Like worse than any other like romantic breakup I've ever been through. I was like, dude, I can't work here anymore. I've got to go and follow my dream. Like I've got to go and do music. And like,
it's probably the happiest thing he could have heard, like felt from you. Maybe.
I think he was happy for me, but he was sad because I think he wanted me to stay because we were buddies. And like, it was a cool vibe, but it was like, he was like, you know what? That's cool. Like he was so cool. He was like, that's cool. Just like go and do it. So I left, started working in a cafe. So I went from this job where I was actually getting paid like pretty decent money to do audio to work at this cafe and, was touring, so it was like more flexible. I was touring. It was around about the same time that I met this other guy that was a really big help for me, Murray Clayton, who ran this studio in Collingwood called Purple Wayne. And I started renting a little tiny studio in there for like not much money at all. He was just happy to like give. He was another guy that was just like super supportive of like bands and just like wanted. So like I started around about that time. I think the first real record I got to work on was Angie McMahon's debut record. Unreal. So while I was in Big Smoke, I should back up a bit. So while I was in Big Smoke, we started making this record, the final record that this band would make, because basically what happened was the lead singer and principal songwriter, he got diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Oh, shit.
It was really hectic.
Damn.
He was only like 28 and basically wasn't like a big drink. We weren't like a big party band. We didn't do, we weren't really smoking. Like there'd be a joint going around every now and then, but it wasn't like crazy. He got esophageal cancer, which was like, it's right in there. And it's like one of the worst things about it is when you get the first symptoms, it's like already too late. So like he's getting symptoms and basically went into hospital and they're like, look, you got a year to live. And he was just like, fuck it. We're going to make the best record we can. These songs rule. I want to get this down and this is going to be me. Like this is going to be my legacy. And me and Luke, who were like younger than him, so he's like 28, we were like 25, 24. We were like, fuck, we have to do this. Like we have to step up. And like Luke was all about, he was a vibe guy. Like he was all about he used to make Adrian feel really good. And like, I was like the guy that was just like, I'm going to make this record amazing. Like I'm going to project manage this. And like me and Luke, not to take anything away from Luke, he was still a huge, like the biggest musical force in the band. Like he was helping Adrian guide it. And there were two other dudes in the band, Joe and Big Dog. Got to shout out Big Dog, Tim Baker. That was the live band. But basically the two people that were entrusted to really make sure the record happened was me and Luke. So we start making this record. We went to Sound Park, which is Northcote. Love that studio. Best studio. We recorded with Now and Zai, who is someone who you should maybe think about getting on the show. He's one of the greatest. Cash Savage in the Last Drinks, front of house dude, and record. Studio recording. Cool. Now and Zai, gotta hit him up.
I'll make it happen.
Now he recorded all the beds to tape. which I don't know, tape is cool.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We just wanted to do it because we were like a 70s throwback thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did it to tape. All the beds went down live.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I took the multi-tracks and we went to the Avery. Another shout out Avery. Fraser, how you going, man?
Yep.
To the Avery and did all the overdubs there. And that place is cool.
Yeah. You're throwing out some of the names of
I just feel like why not?
No, some great,
Phrases
great recording studios.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's made a ton of great recordings in that place.
Absolutely.
Stephen Mowat as well.
Yep.
He runs that place. I don't know if you know Stephen.
I don't know him, but I mean, I all of these
tag
names
all the
are just
people in
definitely.
When I post about this, I should be like, I name dropped all these people. I'm not doing 100%. It to show you how cool I am. I'm trying to because I'm
this is good. No, it's great.
But anyway, so did all the overdubs there. Recorded one song. Start to finish there, Lay Thy Hand, which is on my playlist. Mm-hmm. I really love that song. Mm-hmm. And then Adrian's kind of like, okay, well, you should mix it because I want you to mix it because you're going to see it through. And I'm just like, you know what? No.
Okay.
Because I've never mixed anything really before. Right. This is too important.
Yeah.
And me and Luke kind of like, why don't we just try and find the best possible mixing person that we can for this? Like, let's just try.
Yeah.
So we're sitting around, we're like, well, who's the best? Like, who is the best? Who is our favorite?
Yeah.
And Shawn Everett comes up. And we're like, well, he just did Sound and Color.
Yeah.
And the main reason why we wanted to do work with Shawn was because he worked on this record, which is now called Blake Mills. Mm-hmm. Blake Mills' first record. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know of him, but
I think my mate Tim from Loser loves Shawn Everett stuff, and he's told me to listen to all of it. So
you should. Yeah, Shawn's the best. So basically, he mixed this record by Blake Mills, so you should check out as well.
Yeah.
And we were just like, it sounds incredible. Like, it sounds so vast and huge, but also lo-fi, but also like incredibly high. Like, it's got everything.
Yeah.
And the Sound and Color record as well, which he won a Grammy for.
Yeah.
2 Grammys, whatever. We somehow got our management to contact his management. We sent him the roughs and he listened to it and he was like, yeah, this sounds cool. I'll mix this. It's going to cost like a shitload of money, but we had a bit of money because we had some grants and stuff, Music Victoria.
Yep. And
he agreed to it. So we were like, well, let's fly him out.
Yeah.
And he agreed to it. So, and in the time that he agreed to it, he won that Grammy, and we were like, oh, for sure he's not going to do it now. He's going to like pull out. But he didn't. No. He still came out here.
That's
and
so
the thing
sick.
was, Adrian, like, had really sadly, he passed away before Shawn got to town, right? So I remember talking to Adrian about it pretty much as he was dying. He's just kind of like, he's just like, like, just do the best you can. Like, just make it as good as you can.
Yep.
It was just huge.
Wow.
And we did. Shawn showed up and we thought, let's book this hectic studio because this guy's like this big LA dude. He's going to want all the toys.
Yeah.
Which this is another, like, leads me to the next, like, formative person in my life, which is him.
Yep. Hey, thanks so much for listening so far. There is plenty more to come, so don't go anywhere. I just wanted to let you know that this podcast is made completely independently by myself with no sponsors. So if you like what you hear and you would like to show your support, you can send a donation to the PayPal link, paypal.me/whatsthatsound. The link is also in the show notes. Thanks so much for your support, and let's get back to it.
Not that we spent tons of time together, but basically, we booked this studio, St. Charles Recording, which I don't think is around anymore, which is in Northcote. The guy that had that, I'm blanking on his name now.
We'll find it.
We'll find it. He had the coolest studio. Like, he had everything.
Yeah,
he had
sick.
2 of everything in there. Like, all this outboard. He had this Wonder audio.
Yeah.
Freaking 32 channel like Neve recreation desk. Like, he literally had everything. He had Barefoots,
wow,
Burl converters on every channel, like millions of dollars of stuff.
Yeah.
And Shawn just kind of like walks in and he's just like, okay, we only have like 10 days to do this, which at the time I was like, that's tons of time. Now I spend sometimes 3 days mixing a song.
Absolutely.
It's not a very economical way to live, but
we do what we do to make it sound the best that we can.
He is like, we've got 10 days to mix this thing. What's the Wi-Fi password, man? We're going to mix this thing in the box. And I was just like, what? Really? And he's just like, yeah, man. Like, and then he started telling me, he's like, yeah, the Alabama Shakes record, like half of that thing is an in the box mix. And then the other half, and all this is out there on the internet, you can find it. He would take the in the box mix that he did at his studio and then replicate it at East West with all the gear, like all the hardware versions of the plugins. He would do it. And then they would just A/B them and be like, which one's better? And then like on that record, some of the songs are the in the box ones. Mix. So anyway, I watched this guy mix this record in like 5 days, and I'm just like, it blew me away. Everything that me and Luke would say, and like now looking back on it, we were so like cheeky. We would just be like, oh, can we try this? Can we make this thing sound like it's this? And it's like coming from here. And he'd just be like, yep, no worries. Let's try it. Cool. No matter what we said, like nothing was too dumb. Like he would just be like, let's try it. And that's what I try and do that now. Like if an artist is kind of like, can we try this thing? I never just go, no.
Yeah, I know.
And that's one of the things that's one of the reasons why I kind of see myself as more of an engineer, because I'll always be like, well, it's your fucking song. It's your cash. It's your time, which you're choosing to spend it with me. Yeah. Let's just try the idea that you have in your head, because you only make maybe 3 of these records in your life, maybe 1.
But I gotta make a record. I gotta disagree with you though. Okay. That's a producer.
Yeah,
that is a producer dude. Like you like,
maybe so.
Like attention to detail, caring for the client. Like,
totally.
I mean, it should be an engineer's job anyway. But it's like, I
guess what I'm trying to say is like, I don't try and impose my. Other than that vibe, which I guess is a huge vibe.
It is. It's big.
I try not to impose too much of like my meditated thinking on someone's thing, because it's just like, I get to make a record every week if I want to.
Yeah.
You might only make 2 or 3.
Yes.
So let's try the thing.
So true.
And like
such a good point.
Most of the time, it just leads you onto something else that's cool.
Yep.
Sometimes the idea is great. They've been thinking about it for like 3 years. They're like, well, I want to get into the studio and I want to try this thing. And then we try it and that's great. So anyway, you got to honor that. But anyway, so Shawn would do that with us. Everything we would say, he's like, let's try it.
Yeah.
So this thing happened halfway through the recording. He had to go back to LA. Are you going to just
No. Keep going. I'm just shortening this.
He had to go back to LA to do something. It was like a legal thing. And I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go with you. Because, well, I have to, because Adrian, like I am Adrian's like eyes and ears, and like Luke couldn't do it.
Yes.
So I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going to go. I had a friend of a friend in LA that I could sleep on his couch.
Yep.
And we went. I followed him, but like I lost my passport. So I went back to my house and I'm like trying to find my passport. So I'm literally like booked a flight. And so basically had to get a passport expedited. It came, I went, I only missed like 2 days. So I got there, and then basically what he would do, he was going to East West Studios or Ocean Way Studios, work all day on this thing that he got called back for. And then he would meet me at his home studio in downtown, and we would just work all night. Fuck. And like, there was no like
what a boss.
Drugs or anything involved. Yeah. Like he was just on.
Just did what he did.
And we did the whole record, and like, you should go and listen to it, because I reckon
absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We did the whole record in the box.
Yep.
We mixed the whole record in the box. At the end, he ran it out through his, summed it through his API 1604. That gave it some vibe.
Yeah. Well, I will listen to it. So this is what I do. This is my little thing that you might want to take on board, listeners, is edit drums and edit vocals. Oh, not vocals. I won't be able to do this. But when I'm editing drums, I listen to podcasts. I listen to music.
Yeah,
that's how I can keep up with new music.
Yep.
Apart from driving,
it's the only time
That's the time I got.
Yeah.
So I got to make the most of it. So
and all those kick drums. You know, you could see it. You can mix with your eyes.
Correct.
Anyway, so I think working with Shawn showed me, and being in LA, not that I think LA is better than here, because I think the best place to work is where you are. I mean, that sounds cliche, but it's just like.
Well, I think the best place to mix is where you're comfortable, what you understand.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that is where you are.
Yeah.
Right?
And like if it's really deep in your heart that you want to be around, like, and the reason why he's there and a lot of our other friends are going there and are there is because all the music that we love is made there. And I definitely dig that. And I've thought about doing that. But I think for me, like, I have a kid now, and my partner is from LA. Yeah, right. And her influence on me about it and her ideas about the way of life there, she's just like, Australia is just so much better. So for her to move back there, she'd be like, no fucking way. Yeah, right. Yeah. Especially now we have this kid. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Learning a whole new city, doing all that stuff. I think it's worth it. If you've got the energy to do it, do it. Because I think that the rewards would be huge. But for me, I'm going more inward with my like thinking about music, thinking about life. So for me, there are so many adventures for me to have here. Yeah. As long as there's bands that are here that are willing to like work with me and come along for a ride, while there's work to be done here, I'm more than happy to stay. If all the work dried up, because I think I'd move somewhere like to keep rocking, you know.
And I think like it's totally dependent on where you are in life. Yeah. You know, like all of these influences, you know, all of these life circumstances play a part. And it's like, you've got to be ready and you've got to be willing to put in the work. And it's the same here. You've still got to be able to do that here. Yeah. And you can work your ass off as much as you want or as little as you want.
Yeah, there's tons here.
There's heaps. The thing is, the input is what gets to the output. So if you're putting in less time, you're not going to get less. You're going to get less reward. And so
because the thing is, it's just like a lot of the people that move to LA, I think, move there or like London or like New York or whatever the artistic hubs are moving from these country towns that are kind of close to there because they're like, you know, even to take Shawn again for an example, like he moved from this place in like country Canada, like in the middle of nowhere. And he's just like, where can I go? So like he went there because it's close. Whereas what I did was the same. Like I moved from Pakenham. Just an hour's drive to Melbourne because it's super close. And there's all these amazing bands here. And it's
Melbourne is
it's a good
one of the great like, music cities in the world.
And it's like not the best, but like, yes, I've spent tons of time in LA. Like LA, it can be fucking grim. Like,
well, this is
if you don't know where to go, if you don't know who to hit up, like it could be grim. Like, and it's 10 times as expensive. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't want to come across as someone who's like, don't travel because I've done tons of travel. Yeah. It's the best thing for your brain, but it's just like,
and it depends what you want. Like I had Mitch Kenny on the podcast who lives in LA, who is from Melbourne. And he moved there because he was working on pop music. Yeah. And LA is a pop music world. Yeah. If you're looking to record grungy rock music, you're probably not going to find it in LA.
Yeah, which is probably a really good point and probably something that's more pertinent to like my story. Is it like a lot of the bands that I want to work with, well, a lot of the bands that I like are here. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just the story. Like it's just my story. That's just how it worked out for me. I think there are plenty of people like even Stella Mosgawa who drums for Warpaint, right? I got to hang out with her while she was here. Her story led her to LA because she's Australian. she started drumming in a band that toured there, and then she ended up just staying there and then like hooked up with Flea.
Yeah.
And then like that's her story. And that's just how it happened. And it's like worked out great for her. And I mean, like, it just depends like what your story is.
Like a point that I can gather from that is like you cannot prepare for what life's going to throw at you. And
That's true.
You cannot expect things to be linear.
No.
They're always going to be 10 possibilities for one
whirlwind.
It's just like, okay, do I pick this or do I pick this? And that's going to lead you to that. And then it's going to, and so if you go, anyone that's first starting out in their first year or two probably has this idea in their head of this is how it goes. Like, this is what you got to do in the music industry. You got to meet this person because they're going to get me a job with that. That's just like not how it works. It's just all based on circumstance and who you meet and where you put yourself. And
perfect example. I when I left TAFE, I forgot to put this in the story. I mean, there's plenty in there, but
it's a great story.
Thought there was nothing happening. I didn't have any jobs. So this was while I was I think I might have still been at the call center, and it was like when I was trying to find something. So I'm like, oh, let's do acoustics design. I like sound. I need to do a master's. So I enrolled in Sydney, got in, and I had to go up there to do the enrollment. So I applied and I got in. Going to do this master's of acoustic design, which probably would have led me down a path of being like really like I probably would have had some cash. Like I'd been working on some big like construction places, like doing shit.
Yep.
Anyway, my mom drove me to the airport, still living out of the Pakenham. She's like, okay, we got to go. Me and my mum are always late. That's just the thing. We're like 10 minutes late. So it's like, we're just like, okay, we got to get there. Driving all the way to Tullamarine, which is like 2 hours or something from where I lived.
Yeah.
Get there and realize that I'd booked my flight to go from fucking Avalon. So like, what the hell? Okay. So like, all right, Mom, I'm going to drive. So I'm driving. I'm going like 120 over this freaking Balti bridge, like trying to get to Avalon, get there, boom, get on the plane, got on the plane, right? Fly to Sydney, get there. This is like all happening really 6 a.m. in the morning, get there, and then get to Sydney, University of Sydney, and they're just like, oh, your enrollment day isn't today.
Oh my God.
This is for like local residents. Like you have to come back next week.
It's so funny.
For, you know, the interstate dudes. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, really? If you've known the day that I had, and you know, I was super polite, so I didn't say that, but I was just like, is there any way I can just enroll today? Because, you know, like I've come all the way from Melbourne. And they're like, no, you have to come back next week. I'm like, fuck it. So when I came back to Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I think it was that day that I got the call from Phil.
Yeah.
And he's like, come in to have a coffee. And then from there, I just never looked back.
Yeah.
So like, had I gone to Sydney and done the thing, like I maybe would still be living in Sydney.
Circumstances. So it's like, you cannot predict for these things to happen. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, such a good story,
I think
man.
That pretty much, leads us
it's
to
crazy though. Like so many things that packed into there. Like I love like just the circumstantial stuff of it, the fuck ups and all that sort of, but that defines your life. And there's some great moments in there too. But I want to dive into, you know, what it looks like today. You know, tell us about where your time's spent and, you know, some of the people that you've been working with and things like that.
So after I moved into Purple Wayne, Murray decided to move to Perth, to Margaret River. So he was like, do you want to take the lease over? So I was like, yeah, I love this place in Collingwood. It's the best. So I took the lease over there and I kind of converted it into like being like, he was running his business out of it, which was a land surveying. And then it was just my little room and then one band room down the back where he would do rehearsals. Like he would just run rehearsals. So like basically I converted the whole studio into just music. So like Dax and McRae's down the back with Bonnie Knight.
Another guests.
Yeah, both of those two. Yeah, they're sharing a room. Hamish Patrick is in one of the rooms. Gab Strum from Japanese Wallpaper, he's up the front. You should get him on the show.
Yeah, I really want to. He's on the list.
And Travis Chesney, who does like audio services. So like that's pretty much the crew.
Solid crew there.
Yeah, and like we just do music. So everyone just does whatever they do.
I have to visit.
Yeah, you got to drop in.
I got to.
It's great.
Because I've been telling all the other guys that I got to drop in.
Yeah, come by.
Yeah.
So like basically we just run that place. I just have the lease on that place. Everyone else is kind of like sublet. So like it's just a really cool way to, and not too expensive, to just stay in the city and do stuff. So I built a new mixing room in there. So I moved out of my little one, which Travis runs his company out of there now. I built a new mix room, which is really cool. My dad helped me build that. So my dad is, I probably need to shout him out more. He is another one of those people that has been super influential in my life, just with that can-do thing and always supporting me. So he helped me build this room. I can't really build stuff very well. Yeah. He helped me build this thing. So, and then that's one spot that I have. And then I have another spot, which is at my parents' place where I was probably 18, just before I moved out at home, up in the hills in Pakenham. And out the back, my dad and my brother and me a little bit built this big studio. So it's this giant square box on stilts. So it's like kind of up, elevated. Probably for sound purposes, is probably not that good because the whole thing's probably vibrating, but I love it. And it just like overlooks all the trees. You can kind of see out into the bush. And I have all of my recording stuff set up out there. So I have a drum booth, which is probably like half as big as this room, drum or a vocal booth, and then just one big room that I just sit in. And I feel like that helps with the way that I like to record because I can just be there with the band. So I just have this big room with all my random stuff in it, amps, pianos, all that crap, and drums. And so my life basically looks like I'll get hit up by a band and I'll take them out there to record. And it's good because I can kind of like have it not super expensive. It's like a 1 hour drive. So it's a little bit annoying, but it just means you can have a bit more time. You know, like I used to work at places like the Avery and Tender Trap in Northcote and, you know,
just costs.
Sound Park. And it's like all those places and Head Gap, all those places are pretty affordable for what they are. And probably I've got some pretty nice gear out there, but the gear is amazing. And like the sound isolation is amazing, but it's just like these kinds of things more and more doesn't really, I don't really care that much about it. Like I've got some nice pieces that I like. Mostly instruments and drums that I can't live without. Microphones, I don't really care. Like I've got a few really nice microphones that I like. But whatever, 57, man. Like I just, it's more about polar patterns for me. Like,
and like,
rather than what it is.
It's one of those things that's really difficult to explain. And when it clicks is you have to have the end sound ideally in your mind before you even touch a microphone. And so the microphone, I would say it's probably 50-50, but maybe 60-40 to the positioning of the microphone.
And what it is.
So much more important to the actual microphone itself. You know,
I agree. Like
and just knowing what to listen for. It's like, okay, if I move this 2 centimeters, changes dramatically. And again, if you're listening to this and don't quite understand that, one day it'll click because you can only know when you do it.
And that's the thing, like getting back to like making mistakes or just trying stuff. But I've just found like, maybe this year for me, just really embracing polar patterns, which is like something they teach you in day one. I'm finding so much more difference. Now I just love to record guitar amps with figure 8 because, you know, I bought a Coles microphone, which is like has been this holy grail thing that I've always wanted to get. And it's so expensive. And it's just like I finally had enough money to buy one, so I bought one. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the studio. I'm gonna put this thing on the drums, mono overhead, like Beatles. And it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna solve all my problems. I didn't like it. I put it on that, like where they do it right in the middle. Like
funny.
I didn't like it.
That's for me 4-2-1s on Toms. I'm like, I hate it.
There you go. I like that. But like, so I'm like, I don't get it. And then I'm like, right, You know, like my whole life is a lot. Like I like my M160s better.
Yeah.
And they're like
great mics as well, though.
$600. Yeah. But what I did find was I'd put it on a guitar amp. Little Blues Junior sounded huge because you get this bass boost because it's you know, I'm miking from here.
Yep.
And you get this kind of room sound because of the lobe at the back. And you get this beautiful like isolation because there's nothing from the sides. And you end up you pair that with something else like a condenser or something. So I haven't put a 57 on a guitar amp in like a year.
Yeah.
I literally use my U89 and my Coles, both in figure 8. And sometimes if there's 2 amps, I'll just mic one amp and the other amp. And it's just like the craziest, awesome, big, beefy sound. So and it's just like, I don't really have that many other figure 8 microphones, but I reckon if I sold that Coles and bought a Royer knockoff, like a whatever, it would be the same thing. Because it's the figure 8 thing that I like, not the Coles thing. But I just, because the Coles is there, I use it. But anyway, I just feel like I'm coming into this kind of time in my life where I'm just kind of like, cardioid microphone, like what are all my cardioid microphones or what are all my Omni microphones? You know, I had the same realization with Omni microphones. Great engineer Jonathan Steer taught me this trick where, and it's not even really a trick, but if you're recording an acoustic guitar player and they're singing at the same time and you don't want to get phased, right? We're always trying to get this thing where you're like getting the mics the right distance and trying this thing where
the figure 8s, the 2 figure 8s.
All you got to do, well, like all you can do is if you want, is you use one in cardioid and one in Omni, right? It doesn't matter where you put them. So you can put them right really close and you can put the Omni on the vocal. You can put the Omni on the guitar, but one of them has to be cardioid, one of them has to be Omni. Doesn't matter what the mics are. And you never get a really disgusting out of phase sound because of the way the Omni is. All of the off-axis sound doesn't phase with the cardioid. And you know what? Cool. I don't even really know what the science is. It's probably really simple and there's probably people listening to this thinking, he's so stupid. But try it. Yeah. And it just sounds so amazing. Yeah, cool. And if you're in a rush and you just got to roll, just do it. Get your 635A, put it on the guitar or put it on the vocal and then get your 57 and do that. And I guarantee you it's going to sound way better than if you choose 2 KM84s because the vibe is going to be so good. Yeah. Anyway.
So cool.
Stuff like that.
No, it's great. Let's explore kind of the approach to, you know, you've talked a lot about treating the artist right and things like that. I want to know, you know, what does a session look like? Are they the same kind of overall approach between different artists or is it like, no, this person requires this more and, you know, kind of touch on that for
look, I think I was thinking about this when I was driving up. I think there are like 2 approaches you can have. Like sometimes you can go to a studio and everything can be set up and ready to go in the way that your aesthetic is as a producer or the engineer. Or you can be one of those people that packs it down and cleans it and it's a clean slate. Yep. I've always subscribed more to the clean slate thing because I like it when an artist shows up and it's clean floor, all the shit's around, like all the mics will be up on stands and the gears are up and the drums are all stacked in the corner because I have all these different drum kits and it's just like, I don't want to have that first step of the recording process be like, oh, this is what I had in mind, unless they kind of ask me for it. Some bands will come in and I'll have either worked with them before or we've had this pre-production thing and
there's an expectation.
Expecting it. Yeah. So usually like regular tracking session for me is I start at 8 o'clock and because I work in the day now because I have this little kid.
I'm so right like there with you.
Yeah. Congrats. So I start work at 10. So I get in there at 8 and the bands usually get there at 10 or the artists. So if it's like day one, we haven't had a chat, you know, sometimes those sessions happen where you just don't get to be in the room together. I just have everything kind of, and then we just kind of go how do you want to do it? You know, and then I'll decide like, do you want to put the drums in the little booth and then lock them away and have a real tight sound, or do you want to have them out in the big room?
Yep.
Like we just have a few conversations about what they want.
Yep. And do you find like that most people do know what they want, or is it kind of like they ended up just trusting with what you want in the first place anyway?
I think most of the time people have a rough idea of what they want. But the thing is now I feel like I have a bit of a sound. So I feel like people are going to get like they're kind of going to get what I do. Like usually what my brain is trying to do is get a song to this place where it feels good to me. So I think most of the time, there are a few small changes that can happen that can like, you know, like, do you want big drum sound? Do you want small drum sound? Do you want to track live? They're usually the questions that I'll ask. Do you want to be in the room with your amp? You know, some people like to be in the room with their amp.
Absolutely.
Do you want to have all of these options later for mixing? Do you want to be able to like, if I just ask like those 4 or 5 questions, I'm like, okay, well, this is how we should do it.
Yeah. The one that I get probably most frequently these days has changed from how it used to be, but now is like, do we DI guitars or do we mic them? Like that is a big talking point these days, and it could go either way. Yeah,
especially in like heavier stuff, like and people bringing in like amp sims and stuff. Sometimes I take DIs. Sometimes DI sounds better. Like sometimes you can just plug a DI straight in. It sounds cool. But yeah, I think most of the time, because my space isn't super flexible, like I have 2 isolation places, basically just figure out, do you want to isolate stuff or do you want it to be bleeding? Yeah. And do you want to sing? Do you want to cut your live vocal at the same time? Cool. And then if I can kind of figure out those 2 things, which it happens, like I work with this guy, Dave Weston, and he really likes to cut live vocals and play acoustic guitar. So I kind of know he needs to be in the booth away from everybody else. Because he sings really quiet. So it's just like, just getting as much info as you can. Yeah.
But I think what I love about it is you're taking the time to understand the artist. And yes, the song itself can say that to you, and that's part of our job, is to understand music enough to know what it needs. But if you go into something and have this idea, this is how I'm going to do it, and the artist just doesn't like it, then you start on the wrong foot.
Exactly.
Straight away.
Yeah, and I think that getting back to like my original thing is like, I'm sometimes to my detriment, I'm a huge people pleaser. I just want everyone to be happy. And especially the artist, because I just have so much respect for the artist because of the power that they have, right? Sometimes I've got into uncomfortable situations with people like managers, people like, you know.
I know where you're coming from.
What's that thing? A&R. Not that I've dealt with them much, but I always have this
industry
really
folk, we'll call
stupid, like, and I shouldn't think like this, but I just have this thing where it's just like, well, it doesn't matter if they're happy or not because they're not making the art.
Yes.
And not that I'm trying to kiss anyone's ass or anything, but it's just like,
the art comes first.
Let's think about where this is coming from. Let's think about why we're all working. You know, let's think about trying to, what do you call it? Bolster this creative vibe, this creative energy. And I feel like that just flows onto every little aspect of music. And it's just like, sometimes I go to the studio and I just sit there and it's like in the morning before anyone's shown up and I'm like, why the hell am I here? Why the hell do I have this huge room? Like, why are all these people going to show up here and like try and make something? It's because there's one person in the band usually that's written a song. And we're just going to try and show up and every single person in this room is going to try and make this song. So it's just like, that's really all it is, you know? And it's like, I know there's been so many cliches coming from me.
No, it's great.
I'm a cliche kind of guy.
But you're also like, not, because I think you're thinking about things in such a unique way, honestly. Like, more people would think about it the other way. They would think about it like, okay, we've got to do the thing that we are expected to do, which is like, oh, we're all going to come in and I'm going to play guitar. Or I'm going to play the drums. So it's like you're picturing this piece of art that has come from someone's brain.
Oh yeah. And their heart,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think maybe engineers and producers, yes, but most of the people in the world, especially a lot of musicians, wouldn't even think of it that way.
Yeah.
That's where the special people come out of it, because they can picture this, regardless of the style of music, as a piece of art.
Yeah.
And that makes
you
more.
Just put it in such a nice way.
I don't know. I just think that makes sense to me. And I'm on a similar wavelength to you, where none of that matters if the song isn't the special piece of art that it needs to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're not making someone feel comfortable or valid, and even down to stupid things like what we're talking about with the hard drive.
Yeah. People are always 10 steps ahead. They're like, oh, what video clip do I have to shoot with this song? It's like, none of that fucking matters yet.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll get there.
Yeah.
But, that's our job. Yeah. When that artist walks in, that's part of our job, to create this space where they're not thinking all these 10 steps ahead, and they're thinking like maybe they can be comfortable to be vulnerable, and maybe they can just enjoy. Part of the way that I designed the studio up at Pakenham, and my dad is he's like the consummate artist in building and design. And we would just stand like, for ages, it was just these posts with no walls, and we would just go up and stand on this mezzanine thing and just like stand there and go, "How do you think we should do this? How do you think we should do that?" And then I'm like, one of the things that I had was like, I'm standing up there, and I'm like, let's make it so that because there's heaps of windows up there. Let's make it so all the windows either look at sky or trees. So when you're up there, because it's not that far from the house. Like the house is only 10 meters away from it. So every time you look out a window, all you can see is grass, or maybe there's a horse walking by, or the sky, or the tops of the trees. And it's like, when you're up there, it feels like you're in another world. And I feel like part of our job as engineers or producers is a support role. Again, I'm going back to that thing. It's supporting people to get into this place where they can create, because like the world is insane. Like being connected to everything, phones, like being expectations to be posting, expectations to be saying all this stuff, to be appearing in these ways. Like I feel like one of our big jobs as a studio person is you come into the studio, and even in here, it's really quiet. You can't really see all this extra bullshit. It's like you can just see music stuff, and it's creating a vibe, and just trying to get someone into this vibe where they can go, oh, you can sing a song. Because like singing a song, especially in front of a dude with a microphone like up in your it's full on. It's confronting. Oh yeah. And like we don't do it a lot as engineers. Like we don't, I'm not sure whether you get in there, but it's weird.
It's weird.
It's like being on a set.
It's a very unusual, and for a lot of people that aren't seasoned recording artists. Yeah. Because being a recording artist in itself is completely different to being a performing artist. Yeah. It's so different. Yeah. It's like almost a completely different world.
Well, it
Whereas
is.
It's like you're doing the same action.
But you're getting this feedback from the crowd, right, when you're playing. Yep. But in a studio, especially if it's well treated like this one,
it's bizarre.
It's like you're yelling out into a vacuum. Yeah, yeah. So like that's funny. Yeah, because it is the same act, but it's a completely different process.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I love it, man. Well, I mean, I feel like I'm going to have to get you back, because we've only scratched the surface, honestly. And it's been so good. Like I've loved hearing about your like story, because that in itself is crazy and, unique, and everyone's is unique, but yours has got all these different things. But I guess I do want to start to kind of
we didn't talk about any like geeky stuff. Like I'm sure like maybe
that's why I'm going to have to get back there.
We can do it. Like I can come back and talk about geeky stuff, because I actually do like the geeky stuff.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But anyway.
Give us a quick rundown of some of your favorite pieces of.
All right, we'll do it really quick because I don't have that many things.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so basically the things that I love are I love my Hairball 1176. I love compressing stuff a lot.
Yep.
So that's like one of my favorite things. I have that compressor and I have two level lock.
Mm-hmm.
They're level laws made by Standard Audio.
Limiters?
They're like a level lock. Have you heard of the Shure level lock? It's like a...
I haven't heard it in action, but I know
the Devil Lock plugin?
Yeah.
It's like that, but what that came from.
Sure.
Anyway, so those limiters I really love. Mm-hmm. So you can basically... It's like a distortion pedal for a microphone. Mm-hmm. So I love those three things. My favorite preamps are my API 312s. Cool. I love those on drums. And I love the Neve 1073 LBs. Mm-hmm. Like I have a couple of those. Yep. Like that's pretty much it.
Great.
And then I just love microphones. Yeah. So I've got like all my Electro Voice microphones I really love. Nice. I just got one of those Electro Voice 666 microphones, you know, the
you have to show
Aretha
me.
Franklin like vocal mic. Anyway.
Yeah. I'll check it out after this. We'll
really, I don't really have that many things. I think maybe if we ever did come back and talk about stuff, I would love to come back and talk about mixing because like I feel like as much as I've done recording, I feel like mixing is like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that you can talk about in mixing, and I have this like interesting process now that I do. So like maybe one day,
I want to.
If you ever have time, I would love to come back and talk about mixing. Part 2. But because I love plugins.
Yeah, same.
But
mixing is like
that's
my jam.
Fun. But like maybe one day we can do it. But like, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming in
and listening to my
I love it. Yeah, again, like I'll get you back. Well, and I've got to come visit you and we'll geek out and stuff. But tell the people what's going on, you know, what do you got working on and where can people find you as well?
Okay, so if you go to gormie.com.au or Instagram is easy, it's on there. You can see like a little playlist of stuff that I've been working on.
We'll have the links in the show notes as well. For anyone.
I've been working with Dave Weston has a new song out. Angie McMahon's got a new song out. Yep. This band called Shoe from Tasmania, who are absolutely amazing. Yeah. They've got a new song out. Cool. I'm in the studio with Bats at the moment, which is really fun. Yep. And just about to play some shows with Angie McMahon. So I've just like put a new pedal board together. Sick. And I'm like about to go and play music again.
Unreal.
And other than that, you can find me at the Napier Street Park hanging out with my kid.
Beautiful.
That's on the tennis ball with my dog. That's what I like to do.
Nice.
I'm not at the studio.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again. And thanks to you guys.
Thank you.
We got here. We got through the initial fumble, but this is fucking great. I'm leaving it. I'm not touching it. And if you've made it this far, I do all the lovely spiel of the social media stuff. Follow, subscribe, share it around. We want to get this out to as many people as possible. And thanks for your support. And we will see you next time on What's That Sound podcast. Catch up. Thanks for listening to What's That Sound. Make sure you hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform to stay up to date with each new episode. We'll catch you next time.